Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast talking all things AI.
Oh, hi. Is that what we do now? It does feel like it, huh? I was pretty proud that I had at least one good mobile topic in the lightning rounds last week. Felt like staying
Well,
true to our roots here.
we are mobile developers. Okay, so no, yes, I think today we'll do like maybe a few different topics. I do want to talk a little bit about AI and how I've been doing practical AI development recently. And what I mean by that is helping having AI help me to save me time and be more efficient,
Mhm.
not just in coding, but in different tasks. Sometimes I'm slow to adopt things. I don't know if you know this about me, Frank. Like
Uh,
the
I,
internet. I was like, I'm not the internet. I don't know
I
about.
don't, yeah, I don't know that about you because I feel like you're pretty fast. I mean, you've got those great little handheld gaming devices. You're pretty ahead on the curve there.
Where I play games from like 30 years ago.
Fair.
Yeah,
Wow.
fair.
Touche.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, there's a lot of AI things. There's a lot of things out there. And there's Copilot buttons everywhere. There's ChatGPTs everywhere. There's a bunch of apps everywhere. If you're in Gmail, there's things happening. If you're on a Mac, there's little gizmos and gadgets happening everywhere. And I want to talk a little bit about an experience first from my good friend John Galloway, who I had on the podcast not too long ago, and his recent discovery of some AI tools really sort of was like, oh, I didn't know you could use it for that. So on the .NET blog, there is a blog from Klaus on WinForms and a bunch of new async stuff that they just implemented. Now, in this blog, which is long, so I'm going to find it. Okay, so here we go. If you go down to there's how to kick off something asynchronous. If you scroll down a little bit in there, there is a diagram. In fact, I guess I could just link you to said SVG, Frank, and that would be easier to do. There's a
Where are
diagram
you
where,
going with this? This is weird. Okay,
okay,
so we got a diagram. The diagram is the message loop. Is that the diagram?
that's it. Yeah.
Uh, it's complicated. It's a good flow chart, but there's some state transitions. You really got to read it. I don't even want to read it to people because it's complicated.
So when Klaus wrote this blog, he made this diagram in ASCII,
Oh, fun.
which is pretty cool,
Yeah.
which is totally fine to do. And I thought that was amazing in general. And I think that somehow there's like some ASCII to mermaid converter and mermaid converter to this type of thing. But what basically John did is he gave the ASCII to AI and was like, hey, turn this into a chart. And it like did
Yeah.
it. And it gave him an SVG back that he could do all the stuff for. And this had me really thinking about, well, what if I just asked it to do stuff? Like before I start to do something, I'm going to ask AI if I can get some mechanism to do things for me, right? Because sometimes
Okay.
when I think about ChatGPT and I think about these things, it's often like I'm asking it something like, where should I go on a trip to and how do I plan that trip? I like to do that stuff myself.
Nope.
But when I think about efficiency and time saving, like, can I shave minutes or hours off of my time in general? So this morning, Frank, I have been writing this blog that's going to go out this holiday. It's called like Top .NET Blogs of 2024. I've written this before in the past. And one of the cool things that I do is I count all the blogs on the blog and I also do a word count. How many words were written on the blog, right? Just sometimes it's very, very accurate. Sometimes it's like how many hundreds of thousands or whatever. So I'm almost 100% sure before what I did is
Counted each word.
I think I counted manually each word in every blog, but I am pretty sure like I paged through and I counted up things. So today I was like, okay, I'm going to clone this repo. I'm going to try to like go in and open every markdown file and then like,
Whoa.
do these things,
Yeah.
count it up. And I'm pretty sure that's what I did before in like some Excel spreadsheet. I have no idea what I did 2 years ago, but it was nasty. So I first Googled and I said, hey, how do I do word counts of markdown files? And all our blogs are in markdown. And I got someone that's like, oh, here's how you use pandas and here's how you do this script and you do
Yeah.
this. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm on my Windows machine. And I said, how do I do this in PowerShell? And here's what's cool is I just said, how do I write a PowerShell script that does looks at every markdown file in a fold and all subfolders recursively
Hmm.
and does a word count. And Bing has Copilot built in, and Copilot is just like, hey, let me just write the PowerShell script for you. And in real time, it just writes the PowerShell script. I'm like, what? And it's like really good. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, also, can you update this? Update this to not only return this, but also how many markdown files there were. And sure enough, boom, here it is. And all you do and it's commented code, and it has like the string of the URL that's like, here, just update the path to the folder that you want to go into. And boom, right? I literally save this. I open it in VS Code. I hit the play button and boom, it's just there, right? Not only can I just instantly edit this PowerShell script, but I can execute it and run it immediately on my machine. And I'm like, my mind is blown. Now I'm continuously writing this blog, and it's like the top 5 blogs. And now I've written many of these blogs. I've read many of these blogs. My blogs are not the top blogs, but so I've read these blogs about a while ago, and they're pretty long. There's just one on Grafana, and there's one of these other ones. So I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to write a summary for all these. Nope. I just hit the Copilot button and I say, hey, boom, write me a 4-sentence summary of this. Now I clean it up, Frank. I clean it up, right? But it gives me the high level TLDR. Or another example is like, I used one for Stephen Tobes, which is 380 pages PDF performance improvements, and like, give me the bulleted list. And sure enough, it gives me like this big chunk. And I was like, okay, now I can digest this and I can write something myself for it. So I'm just like, wow, I was able to go from a blank list of just 5, things I'm going to write about, to not only having the intro, all the little bits and pieces on there, and boom, it's good to go. And then, Frank Krueger, I enabled GitHub Copilot pull request reviews.
Oh my gosh, you're just deep diving. Okay, what else you got? You're reviewing the code. Do we want to take a step back?
No, I do not. So I want. This is my
No.
last puzzle
Okay.
pie.
So you went into the PR review.
This
is you haven't filed a PR. You just have a bunch of dirty code on your computer.
I filed a PR. I have the branch. I filed a PR, and I add Copilot as a reviewer.
Mm-hmm.
Copilot's like, hey, bro, just want to let you know you had 18 typos. And also, more impressively, yeah, I had a lot of typo. Because I was rewriting. Like, if I just copied and pasted, it would have been perfect. But then there was this part of it where I had a bulleted list, and I changed it to be part of a sentence. So I removed the bulleted list, the stars, and I just put comma delimited basically between them. But I missed one. And Copilot was like, hey, just want to let you know, like, this should either be a commented list or like an actual list. Like, what do you want to do here? But Copilot's making suggestions for me along the way. I'm just like, boom, 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 boom. And it was like this beautiful thing. I'm like, I not only just saved myself time, but whoever's going to review this blog post time. That's not even just, and there's not even code in that, right? So, I mean, it was just, I'm like, I can't wait to enable this puppy on this. So that is my sort of day in the life of AI, saving me time and energy and effort. And I was like, wow, a year ago, I would have no idea how to do like any of this stuff and just like use it, like using AI. Frank, I'm using AI. It's happening. It's all happening.
So I did not know you were. I thought you've been doing this the whole time because you keep raving about the Teams AI. You just have that attending meetings for you now, I believe, and just it's just running your life. So that's cool. Like, who even is James? I mean, who wrote this blog entry?
When I come late to a meeting, or if someone comes late to a meeting, I don't stop to recap or ask for them to recap. I just hit the Copilot, give me a recap button. It just regurgitates it back. So I'm just saying, so I've been all in on the Teams AI, but that's just kind of like a recapping type of thing. You know what I mean? But like,
not generative.
It's not. It wasn't like generative, right? Now I've used GitHub Copilot in my IDEs, yes. But I'm like, I am slapping together different pieces of AI technology.
They're using
Power
using.
I'd say like
Power AI.
it's kind of like if you have a pressure washer and you're not like going. It's like you have like the light pressure washer mode on. It's like a spray. Like clear.
I did want to make fun of you. I wanted to make fun of you in the beginning because, geez, James, you haven't had these things writing scripts for you this whole time. Like, that's half of what I use an AI for. I'm like, I do not feel like converting this data. Just copy and paste 100 kilobytes of text and by make JSON, like silly things like that. They are great translators. They are so good at converting data between different formats. Like that is AI 101. That's the first thing they learn how to do. So it's kind of fun. Yeah, they're excellent at that. So I was gonna make fun of you for being a slow adopter there. I have mine write scripts all the time. I think the real advancement's coming with the new actual tools that provide, scarily enough, like file system access. And web access, that's safe. But file system access, okay, now we're getting a little scary. Like, what files are you gonna touch? What are you gonna read and write? But wouldn't it be nice if you'd even have to paste it into Visual Studio? Like, that's a whole step you shouldn't really need to take. Just be like, yeah, I authorize you to use my file system. Let's go.
What I know what I should have tested is I should have booted up like a code space, right? Because it's on GitHub, all of our markdown and all of our blogs.
Right.
Open up a code space which has Copilot. What if I use Copilot chat to say, hey, in the 2024 folder, can you give me a count? Like, oh, I bet that would have been good. Wow. Yeah, I'm going to try that.
Okay. Well,
that'd be cool.
Yeah. Will improve your techniques, but pretty cool. I need to take advantage of the PR thing. That just sounds fun. I'm a little bit nervous. Like, I don't mind typos. Yours is all text though, so I'm thinking like from a code perspective. I hope it's not too pedantic. We talked about it before on the podcast. I can't believe I haven't used it yet.
Yeah. I think it was one of the GitHub
back because I want to have that same great experience as you.
I'm pretty sure it's one of the GitHub Universe announcements that we talked about, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't believe I haven't been trying it. Is it really that easy? You just add, I didn't know what the UI was. You can just add them. I was thinking of it from a VS Code perspective because they're doing what I was saying. And I think this is a feature of the VS Code extension, unless I'm hallucinating. When you have like a dirty commits, when you haven't actually committed your code, you can have it do like a quick PR, like a code review, I should say, not a PR, and hopefully give you roughly the same suggestions.
Yeah, there's a few ways to do it. I do believe that you can do it in VS Code, and like it will like review it. I've been using things in both Visual Studio and VS Code to generate all of my commit messages and all my PR messages as well. Oh, it's so good. Are you not using that?
You're a bigger power. You just won this race.
It is. I'll
generate this commit message. I was just thinking that because I still commit from the command line. I'm old fashioned, y'all. And I was just thinking, wouldn't it be nice if it just wrote this stupid commit message? Because how often do you go back to your commit? If you're just working by yourself, how often do you go back to your commits? Never. So
no,
unless you're like, I'm very angry at this line of code and I'm going to do git blame. But otherwise, gosh, why isn't it always generating my commit messages? And now I'm jealous. I will get that working tonight.
It's everywhere. It's in Visual Studio. It's in Visual Studio Code. And it is like super good. Like there's just a little button that says add age and you get to review it ahead of time. Now what's really cool is that they recently added a way, I saw it at .NET Conf. Ria did a great session. I think it was Ria. And there was another session too before her from folks from the Copilot team. But they have some settings where you can, and just do a default. There's like a whole default message, but you can script what it generates. So for example, you could say, it's like ready to come up, blah, blah, blah. And then you can say, be very terse, no more than 3 sentences, and write a bulleted list of changes, all with different emojis based on what's changed. And it'll do it. It'll like do all emojis and emojify it and stuff, which is super cool. But you're right. Like, especially on commits, I am the worst. Mine's usually like update code, do this thing. But like, it just will like, it's like, here's the files you changed. Here's why you did. And it's like really good. Because it has a lot of context of your code. You know what I mean? So that's what's really neat about it.
It's going to make all my other commits look so shameful. Like there's just going to be a cut in the timeline that went from human frank commits to AI commit messages. And it's just going to be so obvious I'm more afraid of the embarrassment that I'm going to pull toward myself. Yeah.
So there's a few things. I'll give this a brief overview because people won't be saying, what about this code review thing? So there is basically review selection and then review changes. So review selection is the VS Code option. That works everywhere, and that is available in public preview today as of a recording, available to all Copilot subscribers. The review changes is in VS Code and on github.com. And that one is kind of like deeper review of all changes. The one in VS Code is like an initial review, highlight sections of code and feedback and suggestions. But that one, the one that's on the website and the review changes in VS Code is public preview with a wait list, and you can click on a button
Okay.
to like get on the wait list basically. But I work at a company that is deeply integrated with GitHub Copilot, so I got to enable that puppy in our repo, and it was like really cool. And it's nice too because everything's suggestions, and I love. Here's a pro tip for people: if you're reviewing code, never leave a comment, always leave a suggestion. You know what I mean? Especially like
No.
if it's small things, like always well, I mean, if it's long code changes, but like if you can give a suggestion, like don't leave a comment that's like, oh, this should really be this thing or whatever, right? Like if it's a simple change, like a one or two
Mhm.
lines of code,
Don't put
especially
a to-do
text.
in comments. I never do that.
Exactly.
That's a
Yeah.
terrible place. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, it's super cool. I'm all about it. And yeah, I'm like, wow,
What's
it's pretty
a
neat.
time to be a coder? Gosh, things have really changed. This is so cool. I can't wait to bring this into my coding life. Will say that like I do tend to do AI driven development now. So I do
Mm.
everything in a chat first. I'm like, I create projects for all my apps. So like you kind of upload all the code. This has gotten better. I forget who's offering this, OpenAI or GitHub, but basically you can just have it, or maybe it's a third party service. I'm sorry, everyone. All these services are really merging in my head. But there are services you can just point it at, like your GitHub repo, and ask it questions and things like that. I do it the manual way, which is terrible, but I maintain like different projects with the different AIs. And so anytime I'm going to
Huh.
work on a new feature now, and this has been for the last year, I always start with the AI. I'm just like, here's the thing I want to add. Can you rough out some ideas and some data models? And then I just kind of copy and paste that code in. Honestly, it's never correct the first time because I don't feel like writing 1,000 words to describe exactly what I want, but it can see my coding style. It can see my data model. It's really good at picking up on that. And I just say, like, here's the feature I want to add, rough it out for me, and then paste that in.
That's cool.
That's the only pro move, I think, because otherwise you're surpassing me on pro moves. But I do recommend creating these projects or having it point at your own repo so you can do these kinds of things very easily. Or
Yeah.
GitHub chat. Yeah.
I think that another area too, I like this AI driven development as well. I love that on trademark TM Frank Kruger Systems LLC, Inc. The establishment enterprise Inc.
Ink.
Inc.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. So one other thing that I recently saw on LinkedIn from Burke, who's on the VS Code advocacy team over there, he did a video on creating an entire game using GitHub Copilot, but with using GitHub Copilot Vision, which is in VS Code, which what you do is it's not because there's a voice where you can talk to it and have a conversation, but Vision allows you to give it images and context. So you can give it an image of a UI, like a Figma
Mhm.
file or whatever, and say, generate whatever UI, blah, 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 off of it. And with now multi-file edits, it can not only like create your CSS or create your HTML, it can do all this stuff for you. And it will look, it will understand the image that you gave it, and then boom, put it into your code base, which is like wild.
That's what I've been looking. I haven't done enough research to find out. So this will be my starting point. I've been wondering what the state of the art is for. Honestly, I just want to take like some sci-fi shows and like give it a sci-fi UI and be like, please generate me whatever it takes to make
Yeah.
this sci-fi UI in my app. Sure, I could do it by hand, but let's have a computer do it because it is a lot of rote work. Um, I'm very interested in that one. Please link that in the episode, James, so that I
I
get
will.
to click on it also. And I hope everyone else will.
I will. I think that the cool part here is not just like from the starting point, you think of AI driven development for a long time. I know I've been like helping it like update and modify the UI and do a bunch of stuff, but then also like generating code behind and cleaning up the methods and doing things like this, right? It's like if you have the UI, you also want all the code behind, right? You want it to update like the
Mhm.
bindings, you want it to be contextually aware. like I do want to go through the exercise, maybe this is a holiday project of, creating like a tic-tac-toe game, right? Like, hey, like that's pretty well known. Like, could I do it? Could I have it do the logic? I did this before where I did a live stream, which was like me creating tic-tac-toe from scratch in like an hour. But I am curious, can I create tic-tac-toe from scratch in Maui, like in 10 minutes? Like, can Copilot just like help me
How
along the
fast?
way? And can I have that back and forth conversation with it? Because I think that's the thing is I don't want to write the boilerplate code, but the real question will be like, how smart is that code, right? Because it's like, oh, can you write that code with MVVM helpers, like with the attributes? Like, can it know that stuff? Like, how far advanced is it? And then it would be kind of neat to like see if the newer models, like, is 4.0 really good at that, or is Claude better at that? Like, what's using like the modern code and the training data off of it? I'd be very fascinated to see if it can be a little bit better. And I think what's fascinating is I watched this video from MKBHD, as we often quote him and other creators, but he did a video review of the Sora, the video generator from OpenAI. I think it's just out into the world now. It was really good. It was an amazing video. It's a very
$100 a month, you can have it.
yeah, that's definitely yeah, it's out there in the world just for a bajillion dollars. It's pretty cool. Like, he does a lot of examples like what's good, what's not good, X, Y, Z, the different things. Like, yeah, it's really neat. And what he has said before, and others have said before, and we might have said on the podcast, is this is the worst that it's going to be.
Yeah.
And as far as like the output, and it's right now pretty dang good. And we said that a year ago and then a year before. You know what I mean? We've been saying that as it goes, it's only going to get even better from here, right? And if you think about it, if you even just look at the evolution of GitHub Copilot, for example, right? Like there's so much more context. Like we've talked about context and context windows and LLMs and the stuff that you're giving it for so many podcasts. But now what we're doing is we're being specific. We are talking about, is it the solution? Is it a file? Is it a method? Like I'm talking to Copilot and I'm giving it the context of what I want it to do. I'm giving it multi-file context, right? And I think that's what's really neat is that as we start to use it more in this AI-driven development type of scenario that you're saying, the tools are getting better as well. So I think that's neat. Now, the next thing I want to see is like bring in other capabilities, right? Like, hey, wouldn't it be great to generate artwork that is compatible and also, scale those images to 3x, 2x, 1x, generate an assets catalog. You know what I mean? All that other stuff. That'd be so cool.
I think we're gonna have to do a follow-up episode because there are starting to be AI-centric development environments. And as much as we love VS Code, there are new companies trying to write new IDEs, start from scratch. This is kind of a new way to do development, so start with a fresh palette, tabula rasa, and build on that. But I'm remiss. I haven't actually tried any of them. But I will say there's plenty of room for improvement. Just what you were saying. Uh, I take advantage of AI for generating that first rough draft, and then I go back and refine it. And then with the help of Copilot, within the code, you flesh out the details. But you don't, you lose a lot of high level control once you get to that point. The development feedback loop is not quite perfect yet, I don't think. Especially when it comes to like modifying the data model. Don't just modify the SQL database, but generate the migration script that I'll have to run on the server because this is actually a live application. So there's going to be like these bigger problems. We're just going to keep asking more and more out of these machines. That's what it is. Keep
Yeah.
increasing the difficulty of the problem. Keep making our lives easier. But why not? Because these are rote. A lot of these things are rote. Add a table that does this and add all the migrations that make it happen. That should just be built in. So we're getting there. We're getting close, but it doesn't feel like a cohesive, integrated development environment right now. It feels like a lot of parts roughly talking to each other. I think tighter integration is just the future forward for at least development. All the other things AIs can do too, though, like we got to rethink other apps, UIs also. But we'll start by rethinking how IDEs should work, I think.
Yeah, I think I talked about it from .NET Conf. There was a great session just on like Visual Studio 2022, right? Like big, IDE, like the integrations that they've done, how like it's kind of started to really infuse throughout. Like it's not just a chat box. It's not just like ghost text.
Mhm.
It's like contextually aware and helping you do this stuff and taking the power of it. Yeah. Copilot in VS Code is fascinating too, because there's like a lot of extensions. Like there's a bunch of extensions, VS Code extensions that live onto it, right? So like you get Copilot, which gives you Copilot and Copilot Chat, but then there's the voice one, there's the image one, there's all these
Mhm.
other ones you can add. And then Copilot also just added, I think they're called extensions, maybe Copilot extensions, I'm not sure. But for example,
Probably the branding.
you can say like at GitHub, and then like you can query GitHub, or you can say at Azure, and it can do Azure specific things. Like imagine the power though, where yeah, there's this general LLM that's doing a lot of reasoning into it. But imagine if you had something that was like at Maui, at Android, at
Yeah.
iOS, that was, really specific about doing specific tasks in those things. Like it'd be great if I could have specific things generate images or splash screens or change color
Mm.
palettes or do specific things um, for those project types that are very specific.
Yeah.
And then how like other things that help me do other things outside of it. So I'm not really sure how that'll work down the road, but it's very fascinating to see it sort of expand over
Well,
time.
sounds to me like it's just a new template engine. Templates are now just gonna be prompts, basically. Like, every command in the IDE should just be a prompt to the AI. Every template should just be a prompt to the AI, and, you can just throw it an image. That's my, "Please add this UI to my app." It's honestly easy. I think just as a community, we just have to sit down and kinda write all those things, and it could be really fun. Like, a Maui specific set, we could come up with 20 commands, I think, pretty easily, 20
Yeah.
prompts. And if
Yeah.
I had full access to your code, and I think, as you keep saying, context, 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 it would be nice to show it not just my code, the project I'm working on, but maybe other projects I've done in Maui, so it gets my style. Maybe your projects in Maui because maybe I want to ape your style.
Ah,
I d
yeah.
or like all the best people, find me the best programmers out there, and I want to code my project in their style because I trust them and the way they code. So context can mean so many things. But
It's
yeah, we really
true.
give it all to it.
Yeah, like I would love for it to like index and like consume, yeah, very specific projects that I've worked on,
Mhm.
XYZ, or samples that I like, or reference apps. Or even better yet, yeah, like imagine, the different types of like frameworks that people are using, whether it be Prism or use be like the toolkit stuff. Like, hey, like I'm building my app in this, like be very aware of this specific
Exactly.
framework that I'm using, right? Like a React bot or something like that, that like knows the context. I mean, obviously, like in general, if you ask ChatGPT and you ask these things, like it knows about it, but there's specific
Mhm.
tasks that you could do
Oh,
specifically,
yeah.
or it could, for example, like influence the type of code that's in it based on, if it's incorporating it into its output, like that could be really neat in general. So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
really
I don't
fascinated.
yeah, and I honestly just don't know the inner workings of things like, Copilot, but, if I make a reference to a NuGet package, well, something should probably spit out a high-level C# file version of that package. It doesn't have all the source code, but it should have the public interface to it so that the LLM's not guessing at the API. It has
Yeah,
access to the API that it can look up through all the fancy vector lookup techniques we have these days. But yeah, just feed it that so it's not because they do hallucinate. I mean, that's the biggest problem with these big LLMs. So you want to give them that data so that they're actually looking something up and not just making it up on the fly.
yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be very fast to see how it evolves over time. We're closing out the year, going to enter a new year here soon. And it'll be interesting going into, 2025. We got build around the corner, probably
Mhm.
VS Code Day around the corner. There's all sorts of good stuff around the corner. Yeah, things are moving fast. I think it's been really cool to see the evolution, like you said, not only of the tools we use and services we use, but the landscape around it, right? So many new things launching this year. I'm sure we'll do a year end recap type of thing because it's the 31st. That 30th is on a Monday. So yeah, we'll do a year end recap, see what we think, what our predictions for 2025 are. But yeah, I just wanted to
Right?
share it. It's cool hearing like how you sort of go and approach projects
Yeah.
too, because the more that I talk to people, like, and how they're using the tools, I think that helps influence a little bit, like how I'm using the tool, that are out there in general. Because there's these little buttons everywhere, and they're ready. They're ready for you to click on them.
Yeah, I've learned I'm just a little lazy to type. I've been using the audio interfaces a lot more. It's feeling a lot more Star Trekky. It's good that
Yeah,
way, I think. Yeah.
yeah. I'm a big fan of
I did
talking.
I did have to ask because you were talking about the holidays. Any holiday hacks? Are we should we should we put ourselves out there like that? I don't know. I have a pretty busy holidays, but we'll see. We'll float it out there. Maybe holiday hacks.
I have like a lot of potential ideas, but I'm not like committed to anything yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there for now.
All right. Well, let us know if you're hacking on anything for the holidays, or write us in. You can go to mergeconflict.fm, write us an email, or more importantly, even easier to do is go to our YouTube, youtube.com/at mergeconflict.fm. You can find links in the show notes, or just search for Merge Conflict in YouTube. You will find us. You can subscribe there. You can also subscribe on your favorite podcast application. Hit that follow button wherever you're at. But that's going to do it for this week's Merge Conflict. AI powered. Were we even human, or were we Sora generated? You don't know. That'd be pretty impressive if it could do the whole thing and it was just us. And what is a podcast anymore? All right, that's gonna do it for this week's podcast. So until next time, I'm James Bonson Magno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.